Super Random Japan. Nani?
Okay, so people seemed to be entertained or at least informed by my deportation story, and people are still seemingly a bit confused about Johnny Somali's fate or whereabouts, the nuisance streamer who was arrested and recently fined and released from Japanese jail. I say released, but that hasn't been verified as of the making of this video. I believe he was, however, as that's what happened to me, which leads me to realizing that I didn't actually share the actual deportation process in my story, probably because it's full of painful memories. However, I'm here again to shed a little info on my deportation process, a deportation I would probably term a soft deportation. Johnny's possibly facing yet the softest deportation, if at all, but more on that in a moment. You see, unlike what some may assume that I was transported from the detention center in handcuffs to a plane filled with prisoners, it completely was not like that. At least for me it wasn't. I'm sure that is the case for some individuals depending on circumstances. However, again, I'm assuming Johnny is in a similar situation to what I faced. In fact, Johnny's in a better situation than I was since he didn't get an actual prison sentence. He just got a fine. Hence, there's no need to deport him. Any sentence less than a year in prison lets you avoid deportation from Japan. I, however, received a sentence of 2 years hard labor, suspended for 4 years. In other words, I got 4 years of probation. If I had committed a crime within those 4 years, I'd have had to serve time for that in addition to 2 years of hard labor. Otherwise, I was free. For the details of my case, watch my previous video, the link is in the description. The problem for me was that 2-year sentence thing. Even though I wasn't required to serve it immediately, it meant I wasn't allowed to stay in Japan. This is something the judge nor police ever told me. They simply let me go. I was released from prison, and I thought I had dodged a proverbial bullet. My big boss, like executive level boss, even forgave me and let me keep my job. I thought my nightmare was behind me. However, like an insane roller coaster, that literally changed overnight. I received a call from my big boss again the next morning saying he underestimated his power. Even though he was an executive officer, he needed to deal with a board of directors and shareholders, so they were going to need to let me go. Thankfully, they were still kind enough to pay for me to get home, including moving all my stuff. I was extremely grateful, as they obviously didn't need to do that. Anyway, from that point, I just needed to pick a day to leave. Unfortunately, I didn't know what day that should be. I still needed to end my apartment lease, pack, send stuff home, and say farewell to my friends. Not to mention, in all this stress, my girlfriend decided all the turmoil of my banishment from Japan, loss of job, and difficulties ahead were too much for her, and chose to part ways with me as well. Sorry, this is all super fucking painful to talk about, and you likely don't give a crap anyway, so let's get back to the deportation aspect. You see, the fact that nobody told me I was subject to deportation led me to overstay my welcome. I don't remember the exact legal limit, but I believe I had 7 to 10 days or something like that to leave the country of my own volition. Unfortunately, in all my eagerness to tie up loose ends, I overstayed any grace period. So when I did leave, upon making it to customs at the airport, I was met with a look of surprise from the customs agent. The agent asked me to come to a back room to speak with his supervisors. There, they proceeded to tell me that I needed to be deported. Yes, even though I had a paid ticket in hand and told them I knew I couldn't return and was leaving of my own free will, they said the process doesn't work that way. They then proceeded to ask me all the details of my crime so they could add it to any documents, and then proceeded to lock me up in the airport jails. I then spent 3 days locked up at the airport while they processed any paperwork and my company found a new flight for me to take. After the 3 days, I was escorted in handcuffs to the plane. Keep in mind, this is not a prisoner transport plane, it was a normal passenger flight. Upon reaching the plane, the handcuffs were removed, and I was welcomed onto the plane, though the police remained outside to make sure I didn't try to get back off. The stewardesses were very nice and the only ones who knew of my situation. The passengers had no clue as far as I could tell. They even bumped me up to business class since seats were available, so I felt some relief, but of course shed a tear as I watched the island country fade away as the plane flew back to America, knowing it was likely the last time I'd see it. You see, while I wasn't permanently banned per se, the customs agents, police, lawyers, and virtually everyone told me it'd be near impossible to return. It was impossible for the 4 years of my suspended sentence, for sure. However, I was told that even after the 4 years, I would need to write letters of apology and add a bunch of paperwork to any visa application, and I would in fact need a visa, as I would be denied access without one. Normally, Americans can visit Japan for up to 90 days without a visa. They also said that even with a visa, I would need a Japanese citizen, usually spouse or family member, to be able to prove they could provide for me. In other words, even if I had a job, I would still need a Japanese citizen to act as my legal benefactor. Even with all that, they said it's still a 50-50 chance, and families are broken up all the time. So, I stupidly gave up all hope and went down a darker path of self-loathing and stupid mistakes, but that's a story for another day. Or rather, never. Point is, that it's nigh impossible for me to ever see Japan with my own eyes again. Anyway, upon returning home to America, I got no flack from customs, just a welcome home. So, as you can see, deportation isn't always as it seems, and in the case of Johnny Somali, he isn't even required to be deported as of yet. However, any visa he has is likely expired by now, and he's definitely past the usual 90-day allowance, so he'll probably at least get a request to leave. If he doesn't respect that request, or accidentally misses his chance like I did, then he may eventually be fined again and or deported the way I was. Whatever the case, whenever he does leave, it'll be extremely difficult for him to return, as he now has a criminal record in Japan. He'll likely be denied any visa, and any customs agents may deny him access if he tries to enter as well. Even if he did miraculously get back in or remain, police and public eyes will always be on him. So it's my guess he is currently free and in Japan, or perhaps he even snuck out by now. He could possibly even be in the airport jail, like I was. Knowing him, though, there's probably still a chance he'll stream as he leaves Japan to have the last laugh, like a coward sucker punching someone as they run away. Either way, he hasn't shown much of a presence online, though there was some action on his Discord account the day he was sentenced, showing he might have been released that day, again like my experience, but that information wasn't verified. Even Johnny's accomplice, Gino, took 3 weeks before he streamed again once he was found innocent and released last month. And even when he did stream, it was in the privacy of his apartment or wherever. He's not risking being seen on the streets. Gino has a residence card, however. I don't think Johnny does, but I'm not 100% sure, as I had no idea Gina did either. Like I said though, Johnny's likely free and in hiding for the moment. While their original plan was to go to Thailand, according to Gino, I believe Gino changed plans to fly home to mourn the death of a loved one. If that's the case, then of course my sincere condolences go out to the deceased and those connected. I don't wish that shit on anyone. Anyway, that about sums it up. I hope this video clears some things up, or perhaps it just confuses you more. While I was released after my verdict in Japanese court, I could be wrong about Johnny's status. After all, I was wrong thinking he'd definitely be deported. Japan never ceases to amaze me. Hence why I'm obsessed with sharing my experiences of the culture with anecdotes, news, and information, as well as review Japanese shows and games, etc. And if that's what you're into, please like, subscribe, and well, you know the deal. Either way, thanks as always for watching.